The Ducati 2025 launch in Madonna del Campiglio was Marquez's third, at least third, different kind of Ducati debut, after his Gresini debut, his Ducati test debut, etc, etc. Still, you can't deny the significance of the image of Marc Marquez in factory red. And given that he and Pecco Bagnaia are widely expected to be this year's two title contenders, it's likely them, and quite likely nobody else, there was an aura of a boxing-style weigh-in here, albeit infinitely more cordial. Here's what we learned about the upcoming first campaign of Ducati's new Dream Team. Let's get through this one quick because you have eyes and can clearly see just as we can that the 2025 Ducati livery is basically the same as the 24 Ducati livery, which is basically the same as the 23 Ducati livery, etc, etc. But aside from the visual impact of a MotoGP legend in new famous colours, there is a genuine new development here. And it is another reminder of just how much Marquez has been willing to sacrifice financially for this career revival. Ducati has a strong link with Monster Energy, and it means Marquez hasn't been able to carry on with Red Bull as a sponsor. We see a split allegiance happen in MotoGP sometimes. See this year's Aprilia lineup. There's one Monster guy and one Red Bull guy, but not here. And remember, Marquez has been with Red Bull forever. He drove one of its F1 cars that one time. His Red Bull helmet is now an Estrella Galicia helmet. And Monster was never going to suddenly become a personal sponsor for Marquez, but it's still quite something to see it on his leathers anyway.
So perhaps one of the big takeaways from today's launch has been this conversation about whether or not anyone else on the MotoGP grid this year is going to be able to challenge the two bikes behind me of Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia. I mean, we came into this season already kind of anticipating that this could be a two-horse show, that this could be a championship that's just decided between these two. Yes, Ducati have lost two bikes, and that should, in theory, that should take away a little bit of the advantage that they've had over the past few years. And, of course, reigning world champion Jorge Martin in particular is off to Aprilia. But it's hard to look past the Ducatis. It's hard to look past these two factory bikes, especially with the two riders that they've got on board them this year, and see anyone else that can realistically put together a full season title challenge that's going to be in any way able to slow down the charge. Even speaking to both riders today, they essentially conceded with a little bit of prodding from the media as much. Riders are never going to straight up say, oh yeah, it's going to be me and him for the championship and no one else. And Mark in particular kind of hinted that, coming into the 2017 season, for example, he never expected that it would be Andrea Dovizioso he was fighting against. But that might be what they're saying, that might be the PR talk. It's a little bit more honest for us, I think, to say, nah, it's going to be these two guys.
Let's look back to last year. Marquez spent the off-season playing down his title hopes. We weren't super convinced, but he was proven totally right in the end. The evidence right now, though, suggests that this was down to bike spec more than Marquez himself, yet going into 2025 he remains notably coy about a title challenge. At the launch he said it would be normal if Bagnaia was ahead to start the season, and he set a rather modest target.
Of course, my teammate will be the one that finished second or first last 4 years, so he's super strong, and yeah, the normal thing is that he will be in front, especially on the first races. But as I said last year, he won 11 races. He did some mistakes, yeah, but if you don't take a risk, you don't win 11 races. So in the end, it's always a compromise. But yeah, I will try to as I said, to learn from him, to try to understand how I can find the best level with my riding style inside the Ducati Lenovo team, and from that point, let's see. But try to be on that top 3 in the end of the championship will be the main target. Of course, we will try to keep the focus on that title, but the main target is top 3.
Is it mind games? Probably not. Is it a lack of self-confidence? Nah. More than anything, it seems like respect towards Ducati's established star Bagnaia. But Bagnaia knows what he saw last year, and he knows what to expect. His title expectations right now are that there could be someone else, but the main two, I think, are us.
So we're just wrapping up the first day of the 2025 Ducati MotoGP launch. We're in a beautiful mountain chalet at the top of the hill above Madonna del Campiglio. We've just had a lovely dinner. We've got some roaring fires, V4R sitting in the snow behind us, lovely scene, and a really interesting dinner because it's kind of the first time this year, the first time this trip, that we've seen Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia with the factory Ducati team, kind of a little bit more chilled out. And anyone that thinks that there's going to be this fierce rivalry this year between these two guys, I kind of wish you could have seen them at dinner tonight. Marquez and Bagnaia are sitting next to each other. They have their girlfriends and their Pecco's wife with them, Gigi D'Aligno with them, and it just looks like one big happy family. It immediately looks like Marc Marquez has just adapted himself into this Ducati team. He's become as much a part of the family as you can be in a factory team. And anyone that thinks that there's going to be some sort of a huge fierce rivalry between these two, I think is probably quite sorely mistaken, because certainly there's no sign of it so far. Obviously that might change once we get bikes on track a little bit later in the year, but it's going to take something really, really severe, I think, to damage what right now seems like a really strong professional working relationship.
Though he's trying not to treat it that way publicly, this is a big season for Bagnaia. He is already a champion and a star, but seeing off Marc Marquez in the same team, something nobody has ever done in MotoGP, would immediately make him an all-time great. Bagnaia says he spent hours looking at races where he did badly last year, and the big takeaway, he says, is that just with a little bit more patience, he would have been a 3-time MotoGP champion. But there's also one very specific area of improvement he highlighted when it comes to technique.
On riding style is difficult to change a lot. It's a long process. But what I'm more focused right now, what I want to improve from the first test is to try to be competitive on left corners as I am in the right corners. This is already a good thing, because on the right corners I feel very, very strong. On the left corners I miss something. So I will try to be better on that, but it's more not to change the strategy, but to change something during the races. Because if we look, I'm one of the riders that have less crashed last year, but I am more 8 out of 9 are on the races, so I have to improve that.
So, left-handed corners. Why? Well, because it's famously Marquez territory. It's something that every rider who looks at Marquez's data notices immediately. Forget for a second that this is Valentino Rossi's protege versus Marc Marquez. Even without that context, we have 2 champions in a team that might be very dominant. It's recipe for disharmony. On track, Marquez is a famously aggressive, no prisoners taken rider. Bagnaia isn't really. He's had his collisions, but few truly audacious lunges. And he doesn't like to race at the very limit of what's allowed. In Barcelona last year, he refused to try to back Jorge Martin into the pack, even if that could have won him the title. At the launch, Bagnaia said that this approach of his will not change, that he will always be a gentleman. And Ducati is confident Marquez will be a gentleman too.
I will not change my approach, because in the end it's much more easy to work with champions than with young kids. So as soon that you know, and I already know very well Pecco, while I'm starting to know Marc in those days, I think that it will be very easy. And what it support, my opinion, is the respect that they see between them. They speak a lot. They are working together to try to improve the bike, and then in the end will be the racetrack that will say who is in front and who's on the back. But this is something that who's behind will take as a stimulation to go better and be better for the following race. So I have no doubt that it will be very easy to work with them.